You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 116. And today, guys, we're going to talk about the one thing that you can tap into that will always guide you when you're not sure what to do. It will help you make your best decisions. It will keep your practice on track and keep you moving forward towards your dreams. It will help you keep going no matter what, even on the hardest days. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my 6-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Hey guys, and welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Ideal Practice. This is Wendy Pitts-Reeves, your host. And I am, as always, so happy to be hanging out with you guys today. How are you doing? What have you been up to? I want to tell you that on the day that I am recording this, I am really sore. Because, you know what I've been up to? I have been up to battling the battle of the weeds. Yeah, I don't know about you, but around where I live, we went through a pretty long dry spell, but that seems to have eased up this week. It's been raining a lot and the weeds have come back with a force, and I spent literally all day. I was just determined. It was a little bit cooler here than it's been. It was a good opportunity, and I decided to take advantage of it. And I spent literally all day yesterday out digging in the weeds. And I'm going to tell you that I think yoga really is serving me well. Because my back doesn't hurt, but lots of other things do. Yeah, it was a long day, but I'm proud of myself and my yard looks better. I'm not anywhere near done. There's more weeds than there is windy, but it's okay. I feel like I made real progress and I felt really productive. How about you? Can you relate to that? Do any of you feel better when you tackle like the big uglies and you finally get some progress made on the thing you've been dreading or avoiding? Yeah, I bet you do. I know I do. And I'm a very good avoider. Yeah, I am. But anyway, enough of that. Today, I'm staying inside in the air conditioning and taking care of this. And I would so much rather be doing this, even though I felt good at the end of the day yesterday. So as a colleague of mine at the hospital I used to work at would say, you know what, I'm tired, but it's a good kind of tired. Well, I'm sore, but it's a good kind of sore. Nevertheless, let's talk about today. As I was thinking about this conversation I want to have with you today, it occurred to me that I had something happen this week that was a perfect explanation of what I want to talk about today. So many of you know, if you've tuned in for a while, that I ran a group practice for over 25 years. I sold that practice when the pandemic hit and turned it over to some dear colleagues and walked away because it was not only time, it was probably past time for me to make that change for myself. But I did that. And then went home for a couple of years and then eventually stepped back out into the community and got myself just a tiny little office that's just enough to see a client or two. I still have a small active counseling practice. I see about 10 people a week, maybe, give or take, and which is just about right. And I have this really cute, adorable little space that is housed in a local charity. It's a charity that uses half of the building to run their nonprofit, and the other half they rent out to folks like me. And coincidentally, it's really funny, there are actually 4 therapists, counting myself, who used to be a part of my group, who have landed there. in a variety of ways. It's so funny. It's like Old Home Week right there in this this nonprofit building. And anyway, the other day, it was the end of the day, I was sitting at my desk doing my notes, and one of the folks who used to be in my practice walked by on her way out. She was heading out for the end of the day. And she stopped to talk to me for a minute. And we ended up talking about how different things are now that we aren't at the place that I used to run. Change always has a good side and a bad side. And the good side is my level of responsibility and obligation has considerably shifted since then, and I'm not sorry about that. I loved running that group while I did, and when it was time to make a change, it was time to make a change. So I'm good with all that. But kind of what got us started thinking about it was we were talking about where we are now is quite functional. In some ways, it's actually better for the clients in terms of the building access is a little bit easier, and she works with an older population that has a little trouble with that. So we were talking about kind of how it was handy, and there were a lot of benefits to where we have all landed, but it wasn't like the old place. You know what I mean? It wasn't like the old place. And she started talking about how special Cove Mountain was, which was the name of my practice. And she said that even today, and she's been gone, we've all been gone from there for between 2 and 4 years at this point. For me, 4 years. I can't remember when she left, but some folks left after I did, because, change is change. But we were talking about what it felt like when we were in this sweet old house. It was an old Victorian house, a 3-story Victorian house that had lots of character, lots of charm, a few challenges, but also what it felt like to be when we were all there in community with each other. And she said that because I worked really consciously and intentionally to build what that practice became, and it's still known as a great place. So that all is still good and still solid. But this person said to me, she said, Wendy, even today, when people find out that I used to be at Cove Mountain, she said, I've had clients who have said, well, that automatically tells me you're good. Like, well, that means you're really good at what you do if you used to be there. Like, even today, that practice has such a strong reputation that just knowing that you are affiliated with it currently or ever automatically raises the bar for how you are seen in the community here in our small town. And I love that. And she was saying how being there launched her career. And that's true. She came and she was one of the younger clinicians that joined us. Not right after grad school. She'd been out in the workforce for a while. But when she started her practice, she joined us. And like so many people who passed through that practice over the years, she learned a lot about how to run a successful practice. And she was just telling me how much that meant to her. And, it was just kind of a mutual, yeah, that was really great, wasn't it, kind of conversation? But then she said this, and this is what I want you all to hear. She said, that was all you, right? You're the reason it was like that. And I said, well, it was all of us. We all consciously made that what it was. And she said, yeah, but Wendy, you're the one that set that up, and you're the one that created that atmosphere and that community. And I'm working on receiving. I'm practicing that. So I just let myself receive that. And as she said that, she said, think about the ripple effect of what you've done. She said, not only have you helped all of us as clinicians over the years, but we in turn have helped so many others through our clients. And you started all of that. It was a really, really sweet moment. A really, really sweet moment. And I share that with you for a couple of reasons. The main reason is that I want is what she was talking about. And I didn't even think about it till I sat down to record this. We were talking about my why. We were talking about why I do what I do, which has been steady throughout my career, really. The way it shows up, the way it manifests, the way I choose to direct it, that has changed lots of ways over time. But my why never has. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Because this sweet, sweet colleague of mine was reinforcing that the intention that I had set for that practice was fulfilled and continues to be fulfilled. And as a result, the intentions that that practice set, we as a group for our community, was also fulfilled and continues to be fulfilled. Here's the thing. People don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. Have you guys heard of Simon Sinek? Many of you are probably familiar with him. If you've ever watched a TED Talk, he's got one of the most popular TED Talks ever. He wrote a book called Start With Why. The subtext is How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action. And this book grew out of a TED Talk that he gave way back in 2010. That TED Talk has been reviewed over 35 million times. The last time I looked at it, it's probably beyond that now. And it is like something like the second or third most popular TED Talk ever given. And I think when he gave that talk, he was introducing a brand new concept that I think was new to him, that had been sort of an epiphany of his, that he shared with that audience and that then took off. He talked about something called the golden circle. It was a formula that he had recognized that finds order and predictability in human behavior, that he said helps us understand how much more we can achieve if, quote, we remind ourselves to start everything we do by first asking why, unquote. Well, with, 35 million views, there must be something to that, right? To that concept. And so real quick, let me just see if I can describe this for you guys real quick, because I know you can't see it. When he talked about the golden circle, what I want you to do is imagine a bullseye, okay, with 3 rings. And at the very center of the ring, the very center of the bullseye, is the word why. The ring outside of that, the second ring, the middle ring, is the word how. And then the third ring, the outer ring of this bullseye, is the word what. So what is on the outside, how is the middle, and why is the center. Got that? Can you picture all that? Okay. So he talks in this book about the power of why, and in that TED Talk. And there must have been something to that, because when I read this book, when I first read it, it's been a few years ago now since I first read it. I find myself going back to it over and over again. When I first read it, I was laying awake for hours thinking about those core questions that I feel like we all need to answer. And I first read this back when I was still running Cove Mountain. And some of his core questions that he asked in the book are, why does your business even exist? Why do you do what you do? What purpose, cause, or belief keeps you going no matter what? What is your why? Why are you doing this crazy idea? Before I go further with this, I want to tell you all about a new thing you can do. If you want to just talk to me, you can text me, and I would love to hear from you what your why is. And you can either you can email it to me, you can post it on Facebook, but you can text me personally. If you'll go to the show notes of this episode, there's a link at the very top in the show notes that you can now click to send me a personalized text. I would love to hear from you, to know what is your why before I even get into this. I wanted to mention that before I go any further. I'd love for you to use that to reach out to me. Okay, so let's talk about this. Your why is a belief. It's a belief that you hold about your work, your business, your staff, if you have them, your team, if you have one, your clients, customers, those who pay you for what you do. It's a belief you hold about the presence of your business in the world. It's what sets your work apart from your colleagues and from what other people in your area do. It's what matters most about the way your practice shows up in the world. And I will say it's what drives you personally. Always has, probably since you were a kid, long before you ever even thought about owning a business. Your why is a deep belief that feeds everything you do. It's what makes all of this worth it. Now, when a lot of people, when you ask most entrepreneurs why they started the business that they have, you can probably predict this. Most of them, a lot of them will say they wanted to be their own boss, set their own hours, do things their way, make more money, have more freedom. You did say that, right? That you wanted to make more money and have more freedom. And you're doing that, right? Okay, well, if you're not, maybe we should have a conversation. But I just want to say, like, that's common. That is what a lot of people say when you ask them why they started their own business. And yes, all of those are important. But Sinek would say that those are results. Those aren't a why. Those are the results of what your business does. Now, let me just read to you just a little bitty bit from this book. So just real quickly, I'll just kind of sort of a background. He explains that what most businesses do is they start from the outside of the circle and move in. So they start with their what. Every single business on the planet knows what they do. You know what you do. And this is true no matter how big you are, how small you are, whether you're Apple or whether you're a solopreneur renting a little tiny space in a nonprofit headquarters. This is literally the service you provide. Individual counseling, family counseling, trauma support, addiction work. I work with children to do da-da-da-da-da-da. Right? That is the what that you do. Psychotherapy, yoga, energy healing, Reiki, life coaching, right? That is your what. Some companies and some businesses know how they do what they do. Okay? Now, for like that's obvious also in terms of the skills that you bring to the table to deliver the services that you provide, of course. And that how may also kind of, you might niche this down into your particular area, like if you do EMDR or you do Eden Energy or you do, any of the sort of specialized areas inside whatever your field of healing is. Of course, that's how you do what you do. You do hypnotherapy, you do sound bathing, you do acupuncture, whatever. That's fine. But this is what he says. He says, very few people or companies can clearly articulate why they do what they do. Now, this is Sinek. I'm reading from the book here. When I say why, I don't mean to make money. That's a result. By why, I mean, what is your purpose? What is your cause? What is your belief? Why does your company even exist? Why do you get out of bed every morning? And why should anyone care? Why should anyone care? He said most organizations, most businesses, most people sort of think, act, and communicate from the outside in, from what to why. And for good reason, of course. They go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest, to the most abstract thing, right? We say what we do. Sometimes we say how we do it. We rarely say why we do what we do. But the most inspired leaders, the most inspired businesses, the most inspired healers no matter who you are, no matter what size your practice is, whether it's just you or you're running a huge multi-pronged facility, whatever, you will know why you do what you do. And I would say that your clients will resonate with this most. Your clients and customers don't care what you do so much. That's not why they love you. It's not why they seek you out. It's not why they stick with you, even though sometimes the work is really hard. It's not why they stay with you, even though sometimes it's a significant investment that they have to work at to cover, or it's an emotional challenge, or it's just logistically difficult for them to get there. Whatever it is, they're not sticking with you because of your what or your how. It's your why. I don't think any of the rest of that is what drives them to buy your programs or to tell other people about your services. That's not what draws them to you over countless other options that they could choose instead. And I'll bet none of that really fuels your fire either. I bet it's what's in your heart, which, my friends, is the heart of your business. I bet that's what drives you. Like Simon Sinek said, they don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Now, what's interesting about this as I think about this is that this applies in so many different levels of our impact and our influence in the world. So 25, 30 years ago, I had a vision that I wanted to build a top-notch counseling practice. I wanted to create a business that would provide quality help for all kinds of needs, whether I was the one providing it or not. So my first vision was, you know what? Wouldn't it be cool if I could build a group practice where no matter what you needed, somebody under this roof could provide that? That was my very first image. And that totally came from a place of service. That wasn't about strategy, that it wasn't even about money, because I didn't care about money back then. It wasn't about anything except I wanted to help a lot of people in any way they needed help. That is my social work heart right there on full display. The secondary intention that began to take form as I started practice. So I started as a solo provider, renting space from somebody else and just sort of figuring it all out. But as this vision for a group began to take hold in my heart, by that point, I had also started to connect with other business owners in town, and I got involved in the traditional business community of my town. That means the chamber and all of those traditional, often masculine forms of business support. And through that, a new intention, a new desire, or a second desire began to take hold that was every bit as strong as the first one. And that was, I also wanted to support other women like me, women in business, women entrepreneurs, who wanted to build a business themselves. I wanted to support women entrepreneurs in building their business. I didn't say it that way. I didn't quite have the language back then. Well, that was what I wanted to do. When I think about it in this lens of Sinek, the what here was build a group practice. The what here was support women entrepreneurs. That's a little bit of the how as well. Now the why, that part what I just said about service to the community, that's definitely part of the why. And other levels, just as I said a few moments ago, of course I was seeking freedom. Of course I wanted better income. More than anything, at that point in my life, I wanted to have the freedom to be home with my children who were small at the time. But my personal why back then and to this day was much deeper than that. I bet you can tell me what you do. I want you to be able to tell me why you do it. Because I can do that now. I didn't know it back then. But over the years, I've come to understand this. I didn't know a thing about running a business in the beginning. But I realized pretty quickly as I got into it that not many women back then were doing that kind of thing. Okay, so when I got, now that sounds kind of funny. So this is in the early 90s, y'all. things have changed dramatically, and I'm very, very grateful about that. But back then, I didn't know that many women who ran businesses, not successful mainstream businesses. And when I got into seeking help or looking for mentors or looking for, networking and everything, I realized that there wasn't a lot of help around there for women business owners, right? So that's kind of where that all was coming from for me. But at my core, the thing that drives me more than anything else and always has is I live to empower other people. And in particular, to help other people do things that scare them and that make them proud. Like there is nothing like it on the planet. The best feeling in the world is when I have a client, whether you are one of my counseling clients that I've worked with privately in psychotherapy, or whether you are one of my coaching clients and you're a healer in practice. But when I see you do something that you didn't even know you could do, and you discover that, oh my gosh, who knew? The look on your face when you accomplish that, like that fills my whole body. It is a feeling like no others. I cry when I'm proud, y'all. So when I was starting my business, I wanted to create a community of providers who came from a place of compassion, competence, abundance, because that's kind of how I think. That's what I wanted to create. I knew that there was plenty of need to go around, lots of business to go around, and that we do more good for people when we quit worrying about who gets the credit. So from the very beginning, I had an expansive sort of worldview about what was possible in business. In fact, one of the things that Sinek says in that book, actually, I've forgotten about this, but one of the things that he says is that companies, businesses, organizations with a clear sense of why never worry about competition. He said, quote, they don't think of themselves as being like anybody else, and they don't have to convince anybody of their value because they are different and everybody knows it. I would say that was true of Cove Mountain. We were different and we knew it. And in the very beginning, so it was just me, and then one colleague joined me, and then two more joined me, and then that was sort of the nucleus of what became Cove Mountain. So it was one, then it was two, and then it was four. The four of us one day sat down and really sort of dug into what was our mission, what was our vision, what was our purpose in the community. And we realized then that we wanted to have an impact on our town as a whole, right? Well, I didn't know it at the time, but I look back on it. All of that was the beginning of my life as a business coach. Didn't see it at the time, but that's what it was. And all of us together were buying into this vision of making the world a better place through a successful practice. I did watch that vision become real. One provider after another grew her business through that practice. As I said earlier, over time, it became considered an honor to work there. A lot of folks who worked there said they came specifically because they felt empowered to be who they really wanted to be as therapists and as business owners themselves. And the cool part, the second level of that, is that the clients who filled their offices were there because they felt the truth of our desire as a whole to make sure they were getting what they need. So this is so cool because, in other words, the providers of that practice were there not because of what we did, but why we did it. Not because of what I did, but why I did it. And their clients were there for the same reason. That's the power of a clear sense of purpose. That's the power of why. And that did drive me for a very, very long time, and still does. I've changed how I do it, but it's still there. So what about you? What is the real reason that you have done this crazy, difficult thing of starting a private practice and sticking with it and learning what you have to learn as a business owner? I do hope that one of the results of your practice as a practice owner, indeed, is that you make crazy good money, because without that, you can't do much of anything else. And of course, I want that for you. But I suspect that your why, what drives you, also is a lot more than that. In fact, I bet money doesn't drive you much at all if you're like most of my people. I had to learn to care about that. So if you can relate to that, then know that you've got a lot of company. But here's the thing, a successful practice is going to make a bigger impact in the world and help more people, right? And a successful practice will be built by a leader who inspires others, creating trust and loyalty along the way. And your clients will follow you not because they have to, but because they want to. Your vision for your practice, for the difference you want to make in the world and in your life, your why, is what builds that loyalty among your clients. And if at some point you have a team or you have other providers and decide to create a group, and it doesn't matter whether you do, whether you don't, or if you just influence people that you meet in your everyday life, people will follow you because we all want somebody to lead us. Your why is what gets you up in the morning. It's what keeps you going on the days that you want to quit. It's what will drive you when you have to sit down and do your billing and you don't feel like it, or you got to write your notes and you don't feel like it, or when you have to deal with a difficult client. It will keep you going because when you're connected to that deep sense of purpose, my friend, and you come back to it over and over and over, you will be unstoppable. Yeah. When you are connected to your own deep sense of purpose, when you are clear about your why and what drives everything you do, you will be unstoppable. So let me give you just a little bit of a homework exercise. I'm going to suggest a little journaling exercise for you. Let me share with you a journal prompt. Open up, find a piece of paper, a notebook, legal pad, however you like to do this. I invite you to sit down. If you're a little wobbly or you're not quite sure, or maybe you are sure, but you want to dig into this a little bit, start with this sentence. Starting, managing, and growing my own business may challenge me in ways I could never have imagined, but it's worth it. I know it is, because it is only through my practice that I am able to what? Let me read that again. Starting, managing, and growing my own business, my own practice, may challenge me in ways that I could never have imagined, but it's worth it. I know it is, because it is only through my practice that I am able to what? I'd love to know how you answer that question. And as I said, shoot me a text. You can communicate with me personally and directly, and I would love to hear from you. The link for that is in the show notes below this episode on wherever you're listening to it. Check that out, my friends, and I hope I'll hear from you. That's what I have for you today. I hope you have a great week. I hope this gets you thinking. I hope that you tap into that center, that why that lives in the very center of your heart, and that it continues to lift you up and carry you forward, because I know that you are meant to do great things in the world and already are. All right, everybody. Have a great week, and I will see you next time right here, which is my why on Ideal Practice. Bye now. Hey, y'all. If this program has become important to you, if Ideal Practice matters, it would mean so much to me if you'd be willing to take just a minute to do one or two of the following things. First of all, would you follow or subscribe to the show here at Ideal Practice? Following me helps you because you'll never miss an episode, but it helps me as well for all kinds of reasons. To do that, all you have to do is go to the show page for Ideal Practice on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. There, just click on the plus sign that you'll usually find in the top right-hand corner, or click on the word follow that you're going to find somewhere there on that page. Of all the things, this really is the most important thing you can do for the podcast itself. While you're there, it would be extra special if you would be willing to give me a 5-star rating, and even better than that, a review with your own words. Your words matter. And when you write what you feel, what you think, you uplift and encourage others. And I love that. If you want to go a step further than that, take your favorite episode or two, one of the ones that has meant a lot to you, and share it with a friend. Could you do one or two of those things for me? I promise I will love you forever. You guys matter to me, and I value your support more than I can possibly say. Thank you, sweet friend, for anything you can do to help me out and support the show. I'll see you again soon.